Hey, as I said, there's a spiritual revolution all over the world, and today we're going to Argentina. Hi, I'm Michael Shevack, and welcome to Godsearch. We're not here to prove God, we're not here to bang our heads about, we're not going to have any war, but we're here to have the experience of unity, of truth, and of using our creative abilities for the betterment of everyone else, commonly called good. Contract that, you get the word God. And with me today is Maria Crespo. She is Director of Growth, Learning, and Impact for United Religions Initiative. We had a little bit of a meeting with Isaac Campbell, so you met another URI. This is a powerful lady at URI. Maria Crespo, welcome to Godsearch. Tell us, what do you do? Director of
Thank you,
Growth,
Michael.
Learning, and Impact?
What a pleasure to be with you and to the audience of this podcast. I live in Buenos Aires, Argentina. I'm a Roman Catholic, and I have been very much involved in the United Religions Initiative for many years now, about 30. And from my very rooted identity as a Christian Roman Catholic in Argentina, where we are a majority, I got to know the United Religions Initiative. And this brought me a huge richness because deeply rooted as I continue to be in my own faith, meeting people from all paths, religions, spiritual expressions, and indigenous traditions has given a perspective, understanding, and most of empathy and love for all people of the world who have chosen find God in so many different ways. But it is so good to share the search. We are all in search of truth, of goodness, of spiritual grounding, and do this together has been something that URI has given me, and it has been a, a gift for myself, my family, and all those that I share daily work in URI.
Yeah, it's an amazing thing because if you were to turn back the clock, 70 years or so, you know, the interfaith dialogue between Catholics and other religions on this scale of intimacy would have been unthinkable. And this is part of the great revolution of Vatican II, which continues to this day. It affected me. All right. I wrote a little bit of a book on the subject that Cardinal O'Connor, may rest in peace, wrote the foreword to. But the after World War II, the Vatican opened up its doors and its heart. It realized that although it claims to be the one true covenant and the one true religion, which they have to do, or you lose the ubiquity of Christ, they nonetheless realized that every single religion was a stepping stone to a good and virtuous life. And Vatican II and Nostra Aetate was the declaration, really changed everything. So, you're a living representative of a true Catholic who outreaches to the entire world and all the religions.
So Vatican II brought a lot of revolutionary ideas. Here in Latin America, we were very much touched with all the social documents, uh,
Sure,
Reverend Navarro, and all those documents that invited us Catholics to look beyond ourselves, especially for those in need, especially have a very coherent life regarding how we administrate our goods. But Notre Stade, as you will say, Michael, brought uh, such an amazing door to open to other
yes,
religions. And I have to say, being an Argentinian, you can keep, even today, not opening to others. It's so because we are a majority, because we live in a context. Um, I was so gifted at my 40s to be able to understand through URI the richness that is present in all religions, because
sure.
yeah, the life goes on. I was brought up by a Catholic family from my own Catholic family, love my life in the parish. I'm very committed to my parish and my work, and I have been a teacher of religion. So imagine how deep this is in my heart. But at the same time, in a world that is more global, in a world that younger generations are in contact with people of different faiths, not necessarily because they are neighbors or they go to the same school or university, but because we are global, right? So social media is a way with where young people meet with people of different faiths, of different um, contexts and realities. And so if we don't work on ourselves to for that openness, if our own communities, as well as the Vatican II did with us, just find what is in the Catholic world, we speak about the seeds of grace, the seeds of truth, the seeds that is everywhere. If we hadn't had that invitation to find what is of truth and beauty and learning in each of other religions, we would remain closed. And
Yeah,
so, even if in Argentina it's easy to stay grounded in your own religion and not meet with others, the Vatican called us to open.
sure.
Sometimes there are documents that are beautiful and it is difficult to ground them in reality.
It
Social
is.
documents came to Argentina and they were contextualized in Puebla and other meetings that asked us to be more attentive to those in need.
Yeah,
Interfaith cooperation started because there are interfaith organizations that reached many countries in the world and helped open that door.
yeah,
So Maria, as a Catholic, I say Notre Stade was meaningful for me because I read as a person that was involved in parish the document and
yeah,
the practice I got through URI at a local level, at a regional level, and at a global level.
yeah. And it's what's very significant for the people watching, because there may be people who have been wounded by religion from an earlier stage of development. The church clarified its doctrine, and one of the things that's very important for those people who are out there is that old time belief that if you're not Catholic, you're damned. The doctrine was clarified, and for those people who, through no fault of their own, meaning a sin, have not approached the gospel, that they may have received salvation, meaning does not deny them salvation. And that doctrine was clarified. And so if you're wounded out there from anything which is a heaven and hell, which doesn't allow you to include yourself in your own life, you know, there've been some changes, so update your tapes a little bit. Maria, for you personally, okay, this is Godsearch. And, you know, we all have faith. I'm a person of faith and I'm very, Bible based, of course. But if you ask me to prove whether God exists, and I first have to clarify what the proof is, and it ain't going to be a scientific proof. So whatever I do, it's not going to work. That's why I say God is an experience. And if enough people have the experience, like any science which is based on accumulated anecdotal experiences that are then looked at for consistencies and commonalities, I believe down the road we're going to get to a true spiritual science, which is going to really unify us all. But when we, but each one of us has their little doorway to that experience that we call God. What is your God search? Wait, let's do it. I always do this to everyone. It's my little handle. Like suspenders. I always wear suspenders to remind myself that I can't keep my own pants up. So, keeps me humble. Maria Crespo, Director of Growth Learning Impact. You as a person, tell us about your God search.
Um, that's a great question, Michael, and I'm super thankful for it. There's a discovery to find God not in a building, not only in a practice, but in people.
Sure.
And so find God in my interior find God in the families that I helped to train before I became a leader in URI, and try to say, well, here's God in this community. But the openness to discover God in the hearts of people from all religions, from all places, has been an amazing experience. And I would go to Matthew, and in this, I was naked, and you dressed me. I was hungry, and you fed me. Jesus there doesn't say, well, in a Christian naked person, or in a Christian hungry, or a Christian in a jail. Just asked us to find him in all hearts. So again, talking about my growth is I open the door to find God in every heart. And I find God in your heart, Michael. And I find God in my indigenous brothers and sisters. And I find God in people from all faiths. And you would say, Maria, but if they are not believers, if they don't believe in the God in God as you do, that's not a problem that I have. I was told that God was there, and I find it there, even if it is a different practice, or even if it is a different phase or
Did you
dress.
begin by being, a lot of people do what Jung called an enantiodromia. I love these words, they're crazy, which is a play of opposites. Did you, in your God search, have a period of time where you were shut down from connecting to other people in the world? I know I went through a period of time where I absolutely couldn't even stand or conceive, and the notion of God, I wouldn't go there. My parents were atheists, and I was you know, tacitly raised to be atheists. I mean, did you have a shutdown period that kind of burst open?
I would say my shutdown is when I wanted to limit my friends, my colleagues, my university companions to those that believe like me. So I I had that in the culture of Argentina. You could just say be judgmental and say, well, these are the ones because these are good people and they are people of my community.
Right.
I want to go out with them. I want to marry them. I want to have my family.
I'm a Jew. I know about it.
And very close. And perhaps, and when, especially, so I went to a Catholic school, my primary and my secondary. And I went to university, kind of open, public. And so when I had to find people to work with me in this workshop or in this working group, I would rather go to those that are Catholic, were Catholic.
Of
And
course, like you.
that was I lost so much. And I was not ill-treating anybody because it's not in my nature. But I was just choosing this group of to be my friends or to be my colleagues. And that was something I had to knock out just to destroy, and start again.
And
So
yet, there is, again, Jews have a certain ethnocentricity. And if you grow up in New York, you think you're also the dominant culture. At least you were until recently. But there is something to be said at times in your life, at least on my God search, for concentrating in a particular lineage. There's a kind of fruit that has to come from a single stem and some little land, and the flower first has to come before it can burst and throw the seeds out. So I've found that if that narrowness is viewed as a concentration for the purpose of clarification of it, then it's very valuable. But when it becomes when it undermines the principle of a singular God, a singular universe or creation, and a humanity that is the image and likeness or the mirror of it, it becomes problematic.
yeah,
You can't concentrate in a way that denies. You can only concentrate in a way that expands.
And I think that there's a nice balance between identity and
Yeah,
individualism. So
yeah.
I think that we have to cultivate identity. And as a catechist and a person that was in the formation of many children and many families, there's a time to go deep into your own pillar of the bridge, right? So be very clear about who you are, what you believe. And
Hmm.
when you are grounded, and that's why URI principles speak about grounded in your own faith tradition, you
Hmm.
seek and find the other. So I don't deny that moment where I was search of identity, what it is to be a young person in the Catholic Church, or how active I can be as a catechist or as a person of church. And at the same time, I didn't lose that. A minute, please. I didn't lose that. I um, incorporated that identity to my meeting people of other faiths. So, yes, I don't deny it. It was needed that I was so deeply rooted in my faith to find others and
Yeah.
to do that in a way without losing myself or being, yeah, the interfaith dialogue at the end strengthened that identity.
In the identity. It strengthened. It strengthened my identity to a certain extent. There were doctrines that are formalized doctrines that people just assume that you fall into. And I actually had the very, very painful path of having to blow everything up and reassemble it. I mean, I did not have it easy. There were no assumptions, even the assumption of God, even the assumption of covenant, even the assumption of Israel, that I was able to just accept nakedly. I had to start from scratch, you know, and it was, and meaning I was given a background and I had reading behind me, but none of it held together. And one day I just blew it up, meaning I just said, look, if you're up there, you're up there. If you're not there, you're not there. And if you're up there, you better make any of this stuff make sense to me. My rabbi,
Mm,
uh,
my path was a little bit different, Michael. I just it was kind of opening.
opening.
Because if you go to the Bible
Sure.
and you don't, the texts are in a context, and we
Sure.
know that we could use different lines in the Bible um, to separate us from others. But if we read it with the message I think Jesus brought to me is he went and met the Samaritan. He went to those in need. So if I don't read the Bible from the imposition of this is salvation is only this way or this is the only way, and if I drop those and I find the Bible, I find the text, I find God at the
Mhm.
end, he's not asking me to close doors. He's asking me to, she, to open doors, to be, yeah, to find him again in everybody. So that is
Yeah.
how I feel at this moment. I can find him everywhere.
Yeah, I'm able to also, and I also find him where he's nowhere. I had to, it's in the Midrash, which is the rabbinic commentary to the Bible. The rabbis were projecting themselves into the Bible stories, which is part of the learning process and creating active, vibrant imagination. And they viewed Adam, for instance, in the Bible, speaking Hebrew. Now, this was a long time before Moses, a long time before even, if you look at it from a contemporary dating system, that Jews arose. So one has to ask the question, how is Adam speaking Hebrew? So there's this discord between the romance around it, which is very beautiful, and the facticity. And I had, because of the nature of me, I had to go, okay, so what they're saying is, and this is how my mind thinks, there must be an ontology to Hebrew. So I had to then do a side thing on what is the consciousness foundation to the structure of languages that then would have everything in common so that I could see that there are originating, it's very funny, Maria. We know that every single human language on this planet has certain common structures to it. And there are certain things that you could do to the language that would still be intelligible, but no human language has it. In other words, everyone speaks a variety of human. Do you know what I mean? There's a structure to these languages that are the same. And that's where I had to go in order to deal with the midrash versus the scientific, let alone the biblical narrative, which was out of sync in time with the legendary story. So it was a terrible ordeal.
But
I would recommend it for people.
if we go to Babel and the
Right.
tower and the languages, they appear as languages, but it is the identities of the idea of fragmentation, of dividing or understanding that we are different and we have to be distant. And in our text of the Apostle Deeds and when we talk about Pentecost, that is also in the Jewish tradition, is just the diversity of languages was overcome to a common language. And this reminds me, what you were saying reminds me of that.
Yeah.
If we are connected to a spirit, to something that is deep, that is rooted in truth and faith and God,
Mhm.
languages don't separate us. It's just that deepness that doesn't even need to speak. And
Yeah.
when the Pentecost in the Apostles' Deeds speak, everybody could understand what they were saying, means that we went through the boundaries of Babel. So I love
Sure.
that. And I think that you were saying something similar.
Yeah, but in the Bavel story, most people may not realize, but Bavel in Hebrew means Babylonia. And those towers in that story were about the ziggurat in Babylonia, the Torah, not to offend anyone out there, but it was compiled after the Babylonian exile. That is a contemporary view. Other people have it, the sky opened and it fell down, so I don't view that. But the interesting thing about that story is that because they were using their power as creative people in a way that was unaligned to the design of this world, meaning as God intended or designed it or as nature evolved. That's a footnote. The languages were broken so that they could not unify in a false viewpoint and then truly hurt the world. In other words, to your point of finding God everywhere, the languages were fragmented to prevent us from misusing our power by dividing us. And if we unify, peace, justice, and healing, nice behind you, we unify, then you can remove the constraint of language. You can remove the barriers to understanding each other and knowing each other as yourselves because you're aligned to the right purpose, you know. So it's an interesting thing that was a punishment that was a blessing.
And I love when you speak about uh, unifying. I love when this small phrase of unity in diversity. The richness of each of us being unique is such a beauty. I see your picture behind. It's different legs, different people, different formats, different ways of being, but at the same time, the richness of the possibility that is
Yes.
behind getting together. We are stronger together. This is
Yeah,
what
do you
we're
know who they
teaching
are?
you and I all the time is
Right.
stronger together because I would say if we do a puzzle of God, it is we said God is everywhere, but in each of us are a puzzle of this God that goes beyond the individual or even an individual religion, because God is everywhere in every person. We have to be together to build the God that needs to illuminate the world. And
Yeah.
so that is what brings me to URI and so much passion about let's bring diversity, let's be together to build a better world. And
So
it is not
very
happening.
tuned in. You're very tuned in, Maria Crespo, because this, if you don't know what this is taken from a photograph of Michelle and Barack Obama on the inauguration day with the Bushes. Those
Ah,
are
I didn't know
those
that.
are their legs. See their legs? That's the four of them together, which I think is very, it just so happens, you know, that I was placed here with that behind me and it works out really, really well. Let me ask you a question about identity and diversity, because we're being pushed in to question the degree of diversity lately. Okay. In other words, what is emerging is a contest to the uniqueness of identity, which is called identity politics. In other words, when does identity itself overstep its bounds? In other words, a lot of people are bringing this up in terms of intergender issues and things that are seem to be, and I say seem to be, opposed to the biblical narrative and the traditions that come from it. So when does identity become itself a betrayal of unity, or does it ever?
That's a super good question, Michael. I feel that there are two risks in identity. One is individualism, when you believe that,
Interesting.
yeah, your identity transforms you in a person that is seeking what you need rather than seeing the whole.
Right.
And the other thing is that and in a way it has speaks to the same, is when you lose respect for others' paths or other um, uh, choices. What we used to go with URI to schools here in Argentina to help that people don't get to 40 years old, as I was, to know URI. And so that children from a Jewish school or from a Catholic school or from a Muslim school or a non-confessional school understand the richness of diversity. And once one of the schools, a Catholic school, a Catholic boys' school, received us with a notice that I felt was super clear, is God created us different and we became distant. In Spanish, distante and Dios nos ha hecho distintos, distinct, and we have created our distant. So
Hmm.
because we are distinct, we are unique, we have an identity. That doesn't mean that we have to be distant. I thought that they were so clever to have that understanding, because the problem of the world today is that we are distinct politically, economically, socially, whatever distinction or identity you want to bring, that brought polarization, fragmentation, division. And this is what I think is wrong. Here in Argentina, so interfaith works very well. So we get on very well because of URI's influence and other influences in interfaith. Even our Pope, just came from Argentina with a strong understanding of interfaith after Notre Dame. But we are quarreling because of politics or economics, and we are fragmented. And where are the bridges there? Everybody thinks that they have the truth, that the true way of dealing with economics, the true way of being a politician, the true way of being. If that those bridges are not set, um, this is for me the problem
Yeah,
between
I think
identity and reality.
you used a word which I think is the core word. It's not identity. You said the problem's individualism. I don't trust isms. I just, communism, socialisms, even Judaism, I don't trust isms. They're human inventions to me, so they're a form of idolatry. And therefore, the problems that they cause when you create an ism, I mean, look, I'm certainly different than you, okay? Um, but I'm not radically different, meaning I have eyes, I had hair once, you know. I'm not radically different. In other words, my uniqueness is still framed. It's still framed. So for me to declare myself as an individual and make myself an ism that is the standard for truth is what I say is a falsity. It's a lie. And I think with all respect to the importance of radical voices, okay? I think they're very important. I never try to shut them down because everything's a piece of God or piece of truth. There is for everyone, whether they're part of the so-called establishment or whether they're radical, where they push their own viewpoint as absolutist. And no matter whether they are traditional or non-traditional, established or radical, they both make the same error of overstating their own opinions as God's order. And I think that's something that we need to look at because oftentimes it's usually radical views against biblical views or traditionalists versus non-traditionalists. And I think it's a false dichotomy. Really do. I think it's
And
false.
isn't, I totally agree that it's a false, and it is the one used, right?
It
So in
is.
order to bring tension or whatever, the things that are promoted are the isms, right?
Yeah, I
So
know.
you get into violence because of isms,
Ism.
because people, in some ways, sometimes politically or economically, it is good to get incentivize the ism so
Yes.
that a person gets to one side or the other. So
Yeah.
fragmentation comes from isms, and
Yes.
there are some very clever people that want to to lit this fire of ism.
Of
So
ism.
and so you come into forces that are without limit because ism is there, and you don't stop yourself to do whatever you think uh, is good, and that's not good, right? So if you think that this person has to disappear of the world, or this country has to disappear, or this economical way of doing, so you fall into a dichotomy that is bringing so much pain to the world.
Yeah. Yeah. It's you feel so good about your uniqueness. But if you overstate your uniqueness to the point that you violate your relationship to everything else, you lose your uniqueness. It's the excess is really the problem to how people are thinking. It's really something. By the way, if you're out there, hello, you tuned in to Godsearch. So go to yourgodsearch.com, open up a conversation with Maria Crespo, and of course, continue your conversation with me. So, Maria, what's your future of your God search? Do you have an inkling of where you're being sent?
That's great. At this moment, so having served in an organization for about 30 years as a volunteer, as global counsel, then regional coordinator, global staff director, uh, and and I will be 70 this year. My God search is what what's coming next? How can I share, mentor, give, offer back
Hmm.
all this that I have learned through the years
Hmm.
uh, as a person, as a member of URI. So I believe that things that you receive are not only yours, are for others. So just this is what I'm asking and I'm searching is when to say it's time for others, but when I have prepared, given, offered what I have received to
Sure.
others so that they can do their own. I'm a very convinced about mentoring and accompanying, but I ask God for the capacity to understand, hmm, it's time for you to live in happiness and uh, yeah, deep commitment to the organization and to God and to
Mhm.
see what's next.
Yeah, I always find it instructive that biology is a symbol of reality for human beings. For one of the things that I find really fabulous re- is that our first act is a selfish act. We take the air for ourselves, and then once we've taken care of the air for ourselves, we then expire, and that takes care of the trees and brings all sorts of carbon dioxide out there. So it's, identity is both a personal self-indulgence and an absolutely selfless sharing at the exact same time, and you can't separate them. I don't think you can, you know? So anyway, our time's kind of, I could do another 3 hours with you, but
Yeah, it has been a great opportunity to be here to have this conversation, deep conversation with you, Michael. I love it. And
thank you.
I hope
Keep your
that the
God search.
audience is also enjoying.
Yeah, just keep your God search going. If you're alive out there, you're on a God search. So discover it. There's no way you can avoid it. Call it anything you want, but it's here. So uncover God, discover God. If you got in trouble from religions or isms, if you got ismated, for heaven's sakes, recover God. God bless, and see you every Wednesday about 5:45 Eastern Daytime, U.S. time. Okay. Gracias, linda, por todo.
Maravilloso. Thank you,
Okay.
Michael. And
Maravilloso.
keep search. It worth the effort.
Que Dios te bendiga.
Thank you. Be
Chao.
well. Take care.